This is Sustainable Sweden Development Ethiopia's first round process leader training held for 5 days starting from 17th to 21st February 2020 in Tigray, Mekelle City at Axum Hotel Veno. The training is prepared by the national staff in collaboration with partner organizations and individuals. The training is going to be delivered by well-educated and experienced Sustainable Sweden Association leaders and guests to 31 participants who came from 10 cities and 3 regions of Ethiopia, including Addis Ababa delegates and SSDE staff. The training is prepared by the national staff in collaboration with partner organizations and individuals. The training is going to be delivered by well-educated and experienced Sustainable Sweden Association leaders and guests to 31 participants who came from Västra Gotland Administration Board. Training begins by the welcoming speech of Mr. Adana. Mr. Adana said that it's known that our organization SSDE has held a training in 14 selected cities on waste management, urban greening, and eco-municipality projects, and about 20 people took a training in Sweden on experience sharing. He also made clear the steps of the capacity building training, that the first term of this training is going to be held in Mekelle for 5 days, second term in Sweden, and the third will be in Addis Ababa for 5 days. He also encouraged the participants to actively attend in all individual and group discussions to transfer all the necessary knowledge and skills. Similarly, the training is also opened by the Mayor of Mekelle City, Mr. Araya, saying that in the package, the modules mainly talk about sustainable development of urbanization, especially on solid and liquid waste management, which are very critical and timely in cities like Mekelle, that has very fast-growing infrastructure buildings. He also mentioned that although we are expanding horizontally, but still there are a lot of gaps on managing it. That's why such kinds of trainings will be very important to all cities. Finally, he said that as a mayor of Mekelle City, he is very happy for hosting this valuable training and thankful for the Swedish delegation for choosing Mekelle to arrange this training.
Because of the plan abused. For example, most of green areas used for another purpose. Their function is misused. This was the critical challenges in our region. Thank you.
It's really interesting to hear all your challenges, and I noticed that the later tables have had more time to think about the challenges and problem. If you want, you can wait.
But I think the most challenge is prioritizing problems. The attitude or the awareness of political leaders is a challenge for me because resource is limited and prioritization is important. So the very problem and challenge is there is some problem in prioritizing problems. There is no thinking in sustainable way. So because the budget is assigned by political leaders, they just assign projects or budgets for in a reactive way rather than proactive way. So
okay, everyone, I think I'm trying to bring you back to the whole group together. So it seems like you have a lot of things to reflect over. 1 minute per person, just to share some reflection. So, anyone that want to share the reflection from yesterday? Anyone? Alemayo?
I think my reflection for yesterday would be that I have learned that, especially from the experience of over Turnia, sustainability is never been an easy task. We have to take it like that. It is a difficult task. There will be full of ups and downs. Therefore, sustainability is. I realize that sustainability is a very difficult task, and we don't have. we should not give up in the process. And this is actually the lesson that I have learned from yesterday.
Thank you so much for sharing, and I can't stress and agree with you that I think it's very important that you look upon the type of work you are doing as a process. That's also why we call this a process leader training. And the process takes time, and also as Sturbjörn described yesterday, you will have ups and you will have downs. Also Christina mentioned that yesterday, that starting as the first eco-municipality in the world, it doesn't mean that you are the best in the world, but it means that you're continuously working with the process.
Of the energy that we get from the sunshine. The second law tells us that it's the entropy law. Entropy means chaos, and means that and can be a little bit more difficult to understand. By the way, matter is also energy, just so you understand. Matter cannot be destroyed either. They can switch the shape and go to another shape, but as being part of the energy, it can't be destroyed in that sense. Human beings' destiny to lose exergy in all steps we are taking, independent of what we are doing. But that's where, for instance, I will come back to that too, where it's important to understand that we need to see that we are losing as little exergy as possible when substances is going from being maybe a tree to becoming a composed soil or something like that in the end. So I'll come back to that too. Well, the owners of this planet, the mother company, will say, okay, we skip this subsidiary company. They have no place anymore. They are not contributing any longer to the common whole. So meaning that if we want to exist in the future, we need to accept what our mother company tells us to say. So it's to adjust us for our own sake. If we continue business as usual, we have no future.
የተለያዩ ቲዮሪዎች አሉና አንዱን እንደ ምሳሌ የሚጠራው የማልተስ ቲዮሪ ምናልባት የምታውቁት ኖሮ ይሆናላችሁ። በ17ኛው ክፍለ ዘመን አንድ ዴንማርካዊ ሳይንቲስት የህዝብ ብዛት እየበዛ ነው እና የዓለም የተፈጥሮ ብቃት ህዝቡን እንትን ያደርገዋል። ምንድነው የሆነ እንትን አለ፣ ይሄ ከርቭ ምንድነው ይሄ ዲሞግራፊክ ከርቭ እና የንጥረ ነገር እጥረት የዲሞግራፊክ እንትኑ ይቀንሰዋል። ምክንያቱም ራብ ይመጣል፣ በሽታ ይመጣል እና በዛ ምክንያት የህዝቡ ብዛቱ ይቀንሳል ብሎ ነበር ያን ቲዮሪ ያመጣው እና ብዙ በተለይ በዛ በኢማንሲፔሽን ጊዜ ያንን ነው ፕላን አድርገው እንትን ይሉ የነበሩት። ግን ምንድነው የተፈጠረው? ይሄ የእርሻ እንትኑ ሴክተሩ እንትን ማለት ጀመረ፣ ማዳበሪያ መጠቀም ጀመረ። ኢፌክቲቪቲ ተጨመረበትና ብዙ ማምረት ጀመርን ማለት ነው። ስለዚህ ያ የነበረው የምግብ እጥረት የህዝቡን ብዛት ይቀንሰዋል ሲባል የነበረው በቴክኖሎጂካል አድቫንስመንት በተለያየ ዘዴ ምርት በማሳደግ እንትን ደግሞ ይሄ ፔኒሲሊን ሲፈጠር ሰው ሲታመም በፔኒሲሊን እየታከመ መሞት ቀረ፣ በረሃብ መሞት ቀረ። በዛ ምክንያት የህዝቡ ብዛቱ እየጨመረ ሄደ ማለት ነው።
Very challenging for being a planner, not a taste. I understand that. But nevertheless, even if you are building housing areas, you can plant trees in that housing areas. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a park. You can even have cultivation in the middle of the block where you have housing, giving also the citizens a chance to cultivate things. So thinking in a bigger term, don't only talk about the parks, talk about how the residential area, the industrial areas can be greener in itself.
Mine is a question, please.
Yes, of course.
In your explanation about evolution, you have mentioned that the beginning of life or human beings, because of that, the evolution has got fast. So, when nowadays the evolution, the life human beings are already increasing, but because of that, nature has getting demolition more. But you said the improvement of evolution, the fastness of the evolution is due to creature of nature or life or human beings.
Groups has choose green development or urban green infrastructure UGI. Therefore, just we have done based on what we have learned in today's session. Therefore, subsistence being, having, doing an interaction is well written.
You have done all four?
Yes, just based on that. Based on that, subsistence, conducive environment, attraction, having food, shelter, and green infrastructure, doing job creation, income generating, interaction, working together. Regarding protection, reserved environment, protected area, having protected area, doing environment protection, social interaction, affection, having good environment, both interaction, living together, both plant and animals, they will live together. In the case of affection, they live each other.
The four thematic areas, we have focused on the three thematic areas, especially the waste management, the urban greenery, and the...
Could you bring the mic
ecotourism
closer? Yeah.
Okay. Recycling of wastes or compost production, this directly joined to the job opportunity for the association, this creation. So the second one is biodegradable, and the production of biogas is coming subsistence. And the other way, gender inequalities, specifically democracy, is a good example of participation. And the other is protection of tourist attraction site, make it give them freedom and protection.
The eco-municipality has had as the overall goals ever since the beginning of the 90s, I would say, the network that was appealed. As soon as the principle was working in the beginning of the 90s, this eco-municipalities took them as their guideline for defining what we meant by sustainability. You recognize the cycle, the natural cycle. Now we have put the society in the middle of that. Also to remind you about that society is part of the bigger system. But of course it's a relationship also between us and nature. And it's regarding that nature, that relationship that we can define principles for being sustainable from an ecological perspective. And the first one tells us that be very careful with what you take up from the earth first. We know the damage that the fossil substances are doing when we take it up and we burn it and it comes out in the atmosphere and have effects on the ecosystem. But it goes also for mining. Remember one thing, a mine is never sustainable. it has a begin, per definition, you could say, it has a beginning and an ending. And if we define sustainable as something that will last year after year after year after year, we can say already here that it's not sustainable. It's also a question of understanding that the damage, when we take up things from the earth, we understand the thermodynamic laws. Everything will sooner or later come out in the ecosystem, and then we will have the damage done to the ecosystem.
ለዛ ይሆናል ራሴን አዘጋጅቼ ከሰዎች ጋር ኮሚኒኬት አድርገን ለውጥ ማምጣት እንዴት እንዳለ የሚያሳይ በጣም አሪፍ ምናልባት ያንን እንትን ቢሆን ስለ ያ ዛፎቹን አጠፋቸው በውስጥ ላይ ዳይቨርሲፋይድ
Karlskrona. This example could be it's from Karlskrona, but it could be from all over the world. It mainly describes how we work with what you call eco-municipality methodology that you all are going to practice in your hometowns. So I think it's interesting. I will give some background though to this particular project. We had a very sad story in Karlskrona a couple of years ago. A young refugee girl from Palestine who was living with her brothers. Had been signs, but the social service and school had not really done enough. So our politicians came together.
ፕራክቲካሊ መተግበር ነው። አሁን በጣም ከፍተኛ ፕሮብለም ያለ በዚህ ሀገር ስልጠናዎች ብዙ ይወሰዳሉ። ስልጠናው ደግሞ እንደ ለምሳሌ የሳይኮሎጂ አንድ ቃል አለ ኤጁኬሽን የሚባለው ለምሳሌ እንደ ትሬኒንግ ማለት ኤጁኬሽን ኢዝ a process of a relative change of behavior. የአስተሳሰብ ለውጥ ካላመጣ ይሄን PhD ቢኖርህም ትሬኒንግ ሺ ጊዜ የምትወስድ ዋጋ ያለው መሬት የሚያርፍ ስራ መስራት ነው ዋና። አሁን በተለይ በእኛ ሀገር ኢሹ ስናየው እና አሁን ኢብራሂም ያለው ኔትወርክ እንፍጠርና በዚህችን እዚህ ላይ ያለ ሰው ኮሚትድ ሆኖ አንድ ተአምር እሰራለሁ ካለ እንሰራ እንችላለን። ስለዚህ የቆያችሁት ነገር ረጅም ጊዜ ነው፣ በትዕግስት ሰርታችኋል እና ከስዊድን የመጡት ሰዎችም ትናንት ስለተነጋገርንበት ብያለሁ። አሁን I think so yesterday we have an agreement or a signing memorandum understanding. Today when I see the TV there is a very crucial point that discussed on television that we have signed yesterday. It is very important for the Ethiopian conditions, particularly in Tigray region, when the television commentators when he said. So already agreed አድርገናል፣ ተስማምተናል፣ ወደ ተግባራ እንገባለንና ሁላችሁ ያንዳንዱ ከመመስገን ለሁላችሁም እናመሰግናለን። በቀጣይም ከዚህ የበለጠ ስራ እንደምንሰራ ተስፋ አደርጋለሁ። አመሰግናለሁ።